Welcome to the Business Finance Bulletin, episode 146. Welcome again to the latest Business Finance Bulletin with me, Rob Warlow from Business Loan Services, the commercial finance experts. In this bulletin, funding from the Business Growth Fund, late payers in the retail sector, who's the worst, and the importance of cash flow forecasts. As we know, access to finance is a problem for many businesses. But in reality, for some businesses, it's not access to finance, it's access to the right finance. Now, for some businesses, getting money from high street banks and asset finance providers and crowdfunding platforms is more than adequate. But for some businesses, taking on more debt may not necessarily be the right route. The right route would be more about selling equity in your business or selling shares to raise finance. But where do you go? Well, one of those providers has just celebrated its 5th birthday, and that's the Business Growth Fund. Now, they specialise in taking equity stakes in businesses. And having just, reached their 5th anniversary, they've also reached another milestone of having made investments totalling £1 billion. And what type of businesses and the level of support have they done in 2016? Well, it's a wide range of sectors. And in 2016, they estimate by the year end, they will have made investments totalling £370 million. And that compares to £250 million in 2015. So you can see some good progress. In terms of the impact on the UK economy, well, they reckon of the 150 odd businesses that they have supported since the fund started, they think that about 25,000 people are employed by those businesses. So good positive impact being had there by the Business Growth Fund. But if you're comfortable with the idea of selling equity in your business, what's the criteria? Well, it's quite simple. First of all, you've got to be turning over between £5 million and £100 million. You've got to be in need of equity and injection totaling between £2 million and up to £10 million. If you want to know more, they've got 8 offices with regional advisors across the UK. To find out more about the fund and where those offices are, just go along to their website, businessgrowthfund.co.uk. Let's move on now to another problem that small businesses have, and that is late payment or cash flow problems. A growing business that suffers from cash flow problems can be a major headache for them. But one sector that does suffer from this in particular are suppliers to the retail trade. So these are suppliers to all the high street stores that you see. And some interesting research has been carried out by a data provider called Ormsby Street. And they've had a look at, well, who are the worst payers in the retail sector. And the number one spot taken as regards late payments is Tesco's. Yes, they pay their suppliers on average 105 days beyond agreed terms. Yes, beyond terms. So if you're a supplier to Tesco and your standard terms are 60 days, Tesco's will take another 105 days on top in which to pay you. Now, this is a major problem for any suppliers to big firms. We've mentioned this before, that your growth can be held back because you've got all this cash tied up on somebody else's bank account and not in yours. Well, what about looking at the research about the next 20, the big 20 retailers? Well, on average, they are paying 45 days beyond terms, and that's still a problem. But who's the best? Well, perhaps not surprisingly, upper market, Fortnum and Mason. They are the best. They only pay 5 days beyond terms, so well done to Fortnum and Mason. The next one, number 2 slot, is Lidl's. Now, the discounter supermarket, they only pay 9 days beyond terms. So well done to those two, and shame on Tesco's. But we do know from recent news that they are trying to improve their payment terms to suppliers in order to help them grow faster and supply them better. But we know late payment is a big problem for many businesses. And in fact, coming out of the latest quarterly business barometer survey carried out by Close Brothers, it reveals that 34% of small businesses say that they suffer from late payment. So it's not just suppliers to the retail sector. What's the message here? The measures that you can take? Well, make sure you negotiate hard, make sure you get your invoicing in well on time, make sure there's no errors, and of course, chase. Be tough. Don't let them strangle you, and make sure that you get the cash in your bank account, not their bank account. I'd like to stay now loosely with the theme of late payment, but more importantly, the impact this has on cash flow and what you can do to forecast and look ahead. Now, the importance of cash flow forecasting and projections really came home to us this week when we were helping one client with a cash flow problem. Now, up to recently, the bank had been very supportive of the cash crunch that this business was facing. They have an overdraft limit, and the bank has been very supportive in allowing that business to go over that overdraft limit on a regular basis. But in talking with the management, it was clear that over the next 2 or 3 months, that cash or that tight cash flow position is going to continue. And I posed this question. I said, whilst the bank has been supportive to date, what's going to happen if unexpectedly the bank turns around one day and says, I'm sorry, we can't support you anymore. You have to stick to your overdraft limits. Well, of course, the answer came back, well, I think we'd have a problem. So what we agreed to do in order to take this element of uncertainty away was to go through a cash flow forecast to really look ahead to what the requirement would be over the next 2 or 3 months. And we told them that now is the time to sit down and formally ask the bank for a proper increase in that limit to take them through to the period when cash flow will become a little bit easier. So the message here is, don't be afraid to sit down with the bank and formally ask for increases where you know cash is going to come under pressure. And the tool to use that is a cash flow forecast or a cash flow projection. So how can you get help here? Well, first of all, you can obviously speak to your accountant and they will be able to help you put a cash flow forecast together. But don't shy away from doing this exercise yourself, because there's a lot you can learn about your business and the impact that cash flow has by going through the planning process yourself. Now, if you do fancy doing that, but you haven't got the templates, well, I'm happy to provide you with some cash flow forecasting templates that we use. All you have to do, just drop us an email, info@businessloanservices.co.uk, and I'll happily send you some of those templates. So don't forget, cash really is king. Sit down, forecast ahead, and make sure you don't get a shock call from the bank. Well, that's it for this bulletin, and thanks again for being with me. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like and a share. And don't forget, if you're watching the video version, we've also got the podcast version for you to listen to at your leisure. That's available on iTunes, SoundCloud and Stitcher. Just go along to those channels and search for Business Finance Bulletin. And don't forget, if you're on the podcast version, pop along to my YouTube channel. Go along to YouTube and search for Rob Warlow. And there you will find this bulletin and all other bulletins in the series. Well, that's it. Thanks very much for being with me. Look forward to being with you next time. See you soon. Bye-bye.